Welcome to Decluttering 55 Plus with Michelle Passoff. This is the place to come for news you can use to get things done. Everybody knows that too much stuff is clutter, and cleaning it makes you neater and tidier. To us, it is a life management tool that helps you navigate your next steps. This is what my book, Lighten Up, Free Yourself from Clutter, is all about. As baby boomers, we have a lot in front of us that is confounding and confronting, so we sweep things under the carpet and put them off another day or forever. That is clutter because it keeps us stuck, and my new book addresses all of that. So we're going to bring experts, authors, and authorities here to talk with us about health, relationships, technology, finance, housing. What are you going to do next in life? Passing down your life stories, and even the challenges of making final arrangements. Here we aim to learn, open new possibilities, choose, take action, and create a legacy, not a mess. So let's get started. This is the time in life where many of us thinking about where we're going to move next. Today, we're going to talk about a housing option that is not only for baby boomers, but is a viable one for many of us. It's called an agrihood. The term combines the term agriculture and neighborhood to describe a farm-centric community. Our guest today has written more than 40 books on banking and finance, but we're going to focus on one aptly called Welcome to the Neighborhood. So welcome, Anna DeSimone. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Michelle. And being in the over 55 generation myself, I was intrigued by the concept of Agrihoods. And you had asked me when we talked before about what made me decide to write a book about Agrihoods, because I write about, housing finance, energy efficient homes. And what inspired me is when I was writing my Housing Finance 2020 book, and I did a chapter on rural housing, which is administered by the United States Department of Agriculture. And I was surprisingly shocked to find out how much the United States Department of Agriculture contributes to America's farmers. There's thousands and thousands of farmers in America. And so what I discovered by accident, that there were 100 agrihoods in the country that had been built or were in the process of being built as of a couple of years ago. And it wasn't easy to track them all down. It took me about 6 months, but I called a lot of them. And my book includes a directory which describes the history, the development, the kind of homes they offer, and the amenities of 100 agrihoods stretched across the United States.
Can you explain what actually, before we take a deep dive into agrihoods, generally speaking, because I believe they're all different than each other, what is an agrihood? My family is in the farming business, and I'd never heard of it.
Well, actually, the term agrihood, which is a combination of neighborhood and agriculture, was coined by the first agrihood in America called Mission Viejo out in California. And Mission Viejo started out, maybe with about 400 or 500 homes, but over the years, it has grown to have 5 different communities and over 2,000 homes.
Wow.
So that's how it started. So the term kind of picked up. It just became a word.
So was it a farmer that took the land that he had and built houses on it, or was it a developer that bought a farm and kept it there and used some of the land for housing? Which came first, the developer or the farmer?
It's actually like, a meeting of the two minds. I think more so the developer decides they want to build a housing community, and they're very interested in combining the forces of real estate with agriculture. Agrihoods are considered lifestyle communities. They are frequently called healthy lifestyle communities. And so I would probably guess that maybe only 1 or 2 farmers in America out of the 100 that I explored decided to build homes on their farmland. And the first one that comes to mind is located in Ohio, where a woman decided to build a community on the land that her grandparents and parents had farmed. And I just love talking to them. I've interviewed them several times. But anyway, what happens is you have a heritage farm, one that's been in the community for maybe 2, 3, or 4 generations. And, it's time for the farmer to retire. But sometimes, well, actually quite often, the developer will approach the farmer and say, will you be on our management team? So I would say if half the Agrihoods in America are on former working farms, about a majority of those, the farmer that sold the land retains a managerial type of control on the workings of the farm. And they're very successful communities.
So they don't build on all the land. They maintain the farm. And does the farm provide food to the community, or does the community help do the farming? Is there a relationship between the two?
The answer is yes to all your questions, Michelle.
I love that. I love it.
Yes. And see, what happens is you have Agrihoods that are all different sizes. The small ones might only be 25 or 30 homes. The large ones might be 400 or 500 homes. And the larger ones are sometimes developed into hamlets. So we have a good dozen or so Agrihoods in America that have a hamlet that are exclusively for the over 55 residents. And then we have a couple that were 100% over 55 communities. And also remember that there are about a dozen urban Agrihoods in America. Oh, and an urban Agrihood is like a multifamily apartment building, and the community garden might be on the rooftop, or it might be like, near the parking lot. But for the most part, an Agrihood has homes that are built on smaller lots of land, because at least 2/3 of the land needs to be set aside as conservation land. And there's 2 reasons for that. One is tax breaks for the builder. The town planners and the communities love to see watershed areas protected. They love to see forestry protected, and not losing wood, because it helps the environment. And so people that are looking to buy a home in an Agrihood are typically going to get 1/3 to a half an acre. And then, of course, there are some that have, 1 acre or as many as 2 acres of land.
Oh, wow.
But typically you have an enormous amount of conservation land that is part of every Agrihood, and that is in addition to the working farm. So if you can picture 300 acres of land, 50 acres is the farm, 100 acres is conservation, which is biking, hiking, trails. Sometimes it's access to fishing and boating, and also community activities that involve clubhouses and pools, etc.
I was going to say, what the relationship between is it any different than any other kind of suburban neighborhood in the relationship between the people who live there, or is there anything that fosters anything special in the way of the relationship of the residents there?
Yeah, I love that word foster, because that's very meaningful to people. They buy a house in the suburbs and all they have is their house and their neighbors. And of course, a healthy community. But in an Agrihood, the best analogy for an Agrihood would be homes that are built that come with a country club membership, most commonly golf. Okay, so in the year 2019, the year that I wrote the book, 2020, about 50 golf courses in America had been turned over to a different type of a development. They were just sold. They were shut down and closed. So there are several Agrihoods in America that are former golf courses. And they make great communities because you have rolling hills, a lot of beautiful views. But another analogy would be a community that is built with membership to a yacht club or a boating club. But remember, even though there are Agrihoods in America where their homes are over $800,000 or $1 million, the average Agrihood out of the 100 that I researched, the average home price was between $300,000 or $400,000. And right now, the average home price in America is $365,000. So it's really not far off. Yeah, it's not far off from their average home. And I also want to emphasize that all these new homes that have been built on Agrihoods, most of them have been built in the past 10 years, are all environmentally friendly, using sustainable construction. They're energy efficient, and quite a number of them include what we call pre-wired for solar energy. So if you can't afford to buy solar panels when you move in, after a year or two, when you've saved some money, your house has all the electrical wiring all set up. And so it's very easy to just attach the solar panels and have solar energy. And of course, some of them came with geothermal energy, mostly in the Southwest, Northwest.
Yeah. How do, as you go around the country, how do the sizes of the houses change? Does the character of the neighborhoods change? Is it different from place to place?
Yeah, that's what I love the most about Agrihoods. The developers and builders were really ahead of the time. I mean, Agrihoods are not cookie cutter homes. So typically a developer will partner with a green builder in the area, and they will come up with 4 or 5, sometimes six or 8 models. And those models are different sizes and structures. The most popular model is the American farmhouse with the rocking chair porch.
Stands to reason.
So the smaller homes, which would be under 2,000 square feet, are sometimes referred to as cottages. But the cottage community in some of the Agrihoods are called cottages because the homes are built closer together, and it fosters the kids riding bikes. I mean, when I interviewed Agrihoods, I was amazed at how the children in these neighborhoods, like, they own the road when they're out riding their bikes. And you know how kids love to build forts and do things? These kids are outside all the time.
They're not behind their fast phones or smartphones or your computers. Nope. They're actually outside.
Well, out of the 100 Agrihoods in America, more than a dozen have charter schools. And one of the first Agrihoods that was built in the United States is out in Ohio. And it was built about 20 years ago. For 5 years in a row, won the best charter school in America for grades K through 12. And the last time I was in touch with them, and they were building a high school. But you have to think about, to me, happiness in your lifestyle when you're aging. It's not about the fancy neighborhood or what I call the power zip codes. It's about the little things that you do every day. And the founder of an Agrihood in North Carolina said something to me on the phone that I absolutely treasure. He said, you have to live outside the 4 walls of your house. And I loved that statement. And this particular Agrihood it's almost like a planned community with its own little movie theater and its bookshops and its cafes and restaurants. And oh yeah, it's an amazing place. And every time I talk to them, I said, okay, if I were gonna live somewhere, I would want to live in your community. And it's because you're outside your house every day. So, and the architecture includes the European style, Swiss chateau, with the white cement walls and the dark post and beams outside. Every hamlet has its own unique architecture. So getting back to the over 55 hamlets, some of those homes are called cottages, not because of the size or the arts and crafts architecture. They're called that way because they have, they're closer together, and that gets people engaging. And also, Agrihoods tend to like to build pocket parks. So for each hamlet, you have a park that would be would be more convenient for the people in that community. So there are some that have no children because they're older communities, or some of them have affordable housing apartments that are rented out.
Well,
so there are about 20 Agrihoods in America where people can actually rent a house or an apartment. There are about a half a dozen where you can walk to the train station and you don't need to own a car.
Wow.
Of course, almost every Agrihood is bicycle friendly. And I'm trying to think of, one of my other favorite Agrihoods happens to be in Florida, but I think I told you about this, Michelle, where there are a lot of seniors there. There are over 1,000 Agrihoods. And every day, about 2 or 3 times a week, people go to their community gardens, which are raised bed gardens, so they're waist high, and they tend to their own private garden, which is 4 feet by 8 feet, which is, surrounded by wood. And they have their teacher, who was a member of the farming team. And one of my favorite things about Agrihoods is that there's a lot of interaction and engagement between the farmers and the agricultural staff and the people who live there. So I'll just walk you through a typical Agrihood. You have a working farm, and 90% of them have a farm store, and there is no obligation or monetary requirement that forces people to shop at the farm store. And typically, the farm store is selling all of the fruit and vegetables that they grow on the farm. And sometimes they will sell eggs, poultry eggs. But another one of my favorite things about Agrihoods is they love to do business with other sustainable farmers in the area. So remember, the key is locally sourced and organic farms.
Do you think that the reason would you call this an emerging trend? And do you think, as you're talking and as I'm thinking about Agrihoods, it occurs to me that a lot of these farmers, you were saying earlier that they retire, and
yes,
that as they retire and they want to sell their farms off, that there's becoming less and less farmland. So it becomes really an important commodity to have that resource right at your fingertips. And is that a reason that it might be growing as a trend, that maybe it's going to be the food source you need, not only the food source that, is kind of cute, it's needed.
I know. Well, the pandemic caused a lot of people to start doing things like homeschooling and being very, very careful about where their food comes from. And so in America, the average food travels 1,500 miles. And so 1,500 miles of food being traveled not only adds to our carbon footprint, because, a very large component of our carbon footprint in America is transportation. And so it's not so much about having the label organic. And in my book, I go over all of the agricultural rules about the definitions of different types of farming and organic and what it is. And it's really about wanting to support your local farmer. So that's why I have a whole chapter, The Farmer You Know. People love that. And it is also very good for children. Every single day, you have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, and you leave your house and you walk about 1,000 steps to the farm, or 2,000 steps to the farm, with pulling the wagon with your toddler. And every single day, the toddler says, I want to go see the pigs. And as soon as they see the pigs squishing around in that mud, they start giggling. It's like Oscar the Grouch Day every day on the Agrihood. And so it's these little things that you do every day. It doesn't matter whether you're a young family with children or you have teenagers that want to ride their bikes into the woods and build a fort, and, or you have, people that just, want to see all of that. And it makes people in their 70s and 80s feel young when they're sitting on their porch and they watch all of this type of activity with kids. And so if you're living alone, it can take the loneliness away, because every day you walk down to the store and you have a cup of coffee or tea, because almost every store has cafe. And so getting back to the store very often sells baked goods from a local baker. They will sell fish from a local sustainable fishery. They will sell poultry or beef from a local, organic or sustainable farm, because farmers like to help each other. And so even though the working farm very rarely will have, an abattoir and create and have cattle.
Anna, if I hear you correctly, you have almost the best of all worlds. You have good food, good neighbors, sustainable housing, and it's something completely new that a lot of people, haven't known about. It hasn't been around that long, and it's growing. So for our listeners out there, we want to be sure that you check it out, because it may be a housing option for you. And if you have interest in finding out more, because we can't possibly cover it all on this program, the go-to reference book to learn more about it is in Anna's book called Welcome to the Agrihood. And it includes there you go. It includes a national directory of agrihoods and community farms. It's available on Amazon and major publishers. However, guess what? Our listeners today are going to get a special discount on Anna's book by getting in touch with her directly for a 25% discount. So Anna, can you tell our listeners how they can take advantage of this special offer?
Yes, I happen to have a supply of paperback books. So just so you know, you can get the ebook if you're into reading ebooks on Barnes & Noble or Amazon for $2.99. And that includes the directory of all community-supported agriculture farms in America, which there are several hundred, there are almost 1,000. But if you want the paperback at a discount, go to my website, which is AnnaDeSimone.net. And
let me spell that out, Anna. It's AnnaDeSimone.net. AnnaDeSimone.net. And you're going to have a button there that takes people to buy the book, and they can get a 25% discount and learn all about the option of living on an agrihood. So I want to thank you, Anna, for enlightening us, because it really is something I had never heard of, even though my family's in the farming business. And that's the whole point of this program, is to teach us something we didn't know. So it's a rightfully growing trend, and who knows, maybe I'm going to move into one of those agrihoods in the not too distant future. Certainly you can go check it out before you move in. You want to know what it's like. You want to know what the people are like.
Absolutely.
And get some experience. So please come back, Anna. Thank you so much for being here today. I wish we had more time to really devote to this, but we're going to bring you back and have another chat about agrihoods.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
Well, that's all we have time for today. So let's wrap things up with a request that you go to our website, www.decluttering55plus.com, and click on the Let's Connect button. Share your thoughts, insights, and tell us the lessons you've learned. If you're facing challenges or celebrating triumphs on your decluttering journey, we want to hear from you. Connect with us on social media. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Let us know you're part of our community by rating and reviewing us from wherever you're listening from today. And don't forget, invite your friends and family, young and old, to tune in too. Let's include them in the conversation. The more, the merrier. Thanks for being with us today. And until next time, this is Decluttering 55 Plus with Michelle Passoff, wishing you a clutter-free day.